Hey everyone, it's Alex and welcome to this guide where we're going to be talking about the top 10 decks in Marvel Snap. These decks have been designed and curated using a variety of different sources to ensure that you're getting the best data possible to help you on your climb to Infinite and in Conquest. If you'd like to support the series, hit the like button. It's the best thing that you can do because it's free and it actually helps tremendously. And if you're not subscribed, perhaps consider subscribing. I release these guides every single week and content all throughout the week as well. And I would love to be in touch with you so that you can see the videos and, of course, engage with this wonderful community. Regardless, let's get started with deck number one. Deck number one is, unfortunately, it's Jaw, and it's going to be the Evolved Jaw here. It's unfortunate that Evolutionary has still not been touched up. It is still very prevalent in both Conquest and in Ladder. It is by far the strongest archetype right now, and there's going to be two separate slots for its decks on this particular guide. This is currently the highest win rate version. We're getting the tech of Killmonger now into these decks in order to deal with the Nebulas, the Sunspots, and others. People are running no armor currently. Like, for some reason, people are just pretending like Killmonger doesn't exist. And so this particular version is now beginning to kind of climb in win rate. However, the overall win rate of High Evolutionary is actually trending down ever so slightly, which is kind of good news. I think it's because most people are getting familiar with how to play against High Evolutionary and are understanding their kind of retreat patterns better, but regardless, it's still one of the best decks in the game. I promise this is the last time we'll talk about High Evolutionary in this particular guide, but yes, it is very dominant in the current meta, and it's the Lockdown Evolutionary Control Edition that ekes out a slightly higher win rate. I think it's because of the versatility it provides in something like a Conquest mode, the ability to control locations with Storm and win those locations just single-handedly with something like a Cyclops or the Thing is just too much. The nerf to Doctor Doom has made it so that contesting stormed locations is much more difficult, and the Thing and Cyclops just do a way better job of contesting there now. So the win rate of this has climbed since the nerf of Doctor Doom, and ultimately the Spider-Man Professor X combination with something like a Daredevil and Nebula is just very difficult to contend with. Overall, it's one of the best decks in the game, and if you're going to be trying to climb through Conquest, this is by far one of the absolute strongest with very little play against. Like, there's almost no real counter to it right now, which is kind of frustrating. You can just simply outdraw, you can outperform, but on a consistent basis, this deck will outperform. I feel like it has to be mentioned, but Sera control continues to be absolutely amazing. Sera itself as a 5-cost, 4-power card is not all too impressive, but the ability for it to discount your cards by 1 is absolutely incredible, especially when you consider the amount of synergies it provides with Miracle style turn 6s, which don't necessarily have to be bounce style, like, you know, massive board sweeping plays. It can just be being able to play Shang-Chi +1 on turn 6, right? And that's where this deck truly excels. It does have the burst potential of the Hitmonkey Bishop and Mysterio combination as well, so it does have that vertical power, but what makes this deck so strong, specifically for Conquest, is its ability to answer to a variety of different situations. Scarlet Witch, while kind of being slept on, does provide you with the opportunity to deal with problematic locations in Conquest. And then, of course, you have that the Killmonger, which provides impressive tech, which is very easy to play in conjunction with Kitty Pryde, because Kitty Pryde's always coming back to your hand. So Kitty Pryde's one of those 1-drops that you can play with Killmonger pretty confidently, right? So you're getting the tech, you're getting all the answers. There's very few decks, really, that can go straight up against Sera Control, and you're like, I don't have an answer for it. You almost always have an answer, and that's what makes Sera Control so strong. Rocks and Hawks is back. What can I say? Co-host of the Snapchat, Cozy Snap, has once again got the world hyped up over Rocks and Hawks, and this is currently one of the iterations that is making rounds in Marvel Snap. The win rate is actually a little lower than I would have expected at approximately 54%, but regardless, I do think that the deck is still being refined, play patterns are still being understood, and I think that this is going to be a bit of a climber, a few more percent over the next coming weeks. But regardless, I really like this list for what it does. I mean, Quinjet is getting buff after buff by association with other cards non-stop. You got that 4-drop Nick Fury, and of course it's the Zabu package, and of course Maria Hill, which I absolutely love. And Maria Hill does feel cuttable at times, but still can be pretty valuable. But ultimately, the disruption you create with the rock slides and everything else that's coming down, the scouting you get from White Queen, it just makes an overall package that's so confident to play in something like a Conquest mode, especially when you consider something like a turn 5 Devil Dinosaur into a Mystique on turn 6 with Darkhawk on turn 6 as well if you have Zabu out, or even, of course, you copy the Mystique and you're playing Nick Fury to pop up the hand of the Darkhawk and the Mystique, right? So it's pretty impressive what this deck is capable of, and it's going to be a climber in the meta. I've had a number of people tell me that they're surprised that I keep talking about Destroy. But honestly, Classic Destroy continues to be really good, and like we actually just got a new tool for it in Phoenix Force, but Phoenix Force hasn't quite shaken up the meta yet. We're still working on some different archetypes and different play patterns and different decks, so they'll maybe be featured later in the week or perhaps even next week. But honestly, just straight up Classic Destroy running a 56% win rate with a pretty sizable share of the meta is actually impressive. Like, who would have thought a month ago that we'd be talking about Sabretooth being one of the top meta lists at 56% win rate? Like, it's really impressive what Destroy is doing right now, and that comes after changes to Death Wave, and etc., right? So I really like what this deck is doing. This particular variation, which is a slightly higher win rate version of the non-Deadpool version. So the highest win rate version currently has Deadpool, which allows you to feed into that Venom. Usually you play a discounted Death with Deadpool, or you just play the Null, right? So you have a couple different play patterns and win conditions here. You've got the Killmonger tech, which wipes out the 1-drops of your opposing players, especially if you're able to kind of concede initiation, so that you can concede initiative, so that you can then take out the Kitty Prides and the bounce-based list. You can destroy bounce with clever use of initiative, which can be difficult because obviously they're pulling stuff back to their hand, and if they're a good player, they'll know that they need to Falcon or bounce into turn 5, knowing that on turn 6 they need to concede initiative. But regardless, it's a great deck, its win rate is damn solid, and it continues to be a reliable source for wins in the meta. One of the things that completely blows me away sometimes is how this particular Decks of the Week series can actually have an impact on the greater meta. And we're seeing exactly that with Shuri and Sauron, because a couple weeks ago, no one was playing the deck, no one was talking about it. It was a hidden gem for us with a 60% plus win rate. And then slowly and surely, it started to climb back in the meta, started to gain in popularity, and now it is legitimately a part of the meta again. Sauron represents an excellent card that allows you to utilize some very powerful synergies in the game. There's no question that the newly buffed Red Skull Taskmaster play is once again back as a legitimate force. Now as a 5/14, when you play Sauron, you get rid of that negative effect. Taskmaster on 6 with something like an Ebony Maw on turn 6. No one's accounting for Ebony Maw on turn 6, because once you play Sauron, that ongoing effect is removed, so you're able to play them anytime you want. This deck is truly powerful. It has multiple win conditions. You have the Shuri play pattern, of course, and then you just have simply just good cards like Typhoid Mary's a 4/10 with Sauron on the board. No disadvantage. It's beautiful. This deck is putting up serious power and is a great contender in something like Conquest mode. Without question, one of the absolute best decks in Marvel Snap right now is Bacon Bounce. Using this infuriating mini leech to basically nullify cards in your opponent's hand is just simply insane. It can be used in Conquest to amazing effect, and in Ranked incredibly as well. The ability to play it early, bring it back, and then play it again later and allow them to draw into their bigger cards and smoke those is just so incredible. The scouting that you get from seeing what is hit, unlike the Iceman, is truly remarkable. And then of course, if you beast it, it becomes free, and it just feeds into the Hitmonkey, into the Bishop, into the Angela, and it just completely makes this deck shine. It gives it the added tech you need. The thing about this deck that makes it really powerful is the inclusion of Chavez. Not only does it improve your card draw, but also on turn 6, it gives you the opportunity to counterplay those pesky waves that are dropping on turn 5, especially in Conquest. If you know that someone is playing wave, then what you can do is you can dump your hand on turn 5, which you can absolutely do, and then you counter that with the Chavez on 6, okay? So, and if someone snaps on you on turn 5, you can pretty much, okay, they're going to play wave, maybe I'll dump my hand here. Chavez represents a very good insurance policy while improving your draw. Regardless, Bacon Bounce, without question, one of the best decks in Marvel Snap right now, although probably the most difficult to pilot. The win rates tend to really fluctuate between players, but if you're a good pilot of this list, you can definitely take it to infinite. And now we're into our hidden gems, decks with really low play rates but very high win rates. Collector Discard is currently one of the top decks of that category, which is kind of surprising because we just talked about Spider-Ham, and Spider-Ham destroys Discard because if it hits Apocalypse, Apocalypse becomes a giant sheep that just gets dismantled, right? However, that's why this particular deck runs something like a Hell Cow. Traditionally, we've been cutting Hell Cow from these lists in favor of just running MODOK, and we add more value to the list in place of Hell Cow because, well, you just need MODOK under most circumstances. However, if MODOK gets piggied, then you got the Hell Cow as a backup. If your Apocalypse gets piggied, then you have the Chavez on turn 4, and then you can basically play a standard discard game where you're just trying to run up your Morbius, right? There's a different play pattern here, and of course that is specifically against something like Spider-Ham, but if you're not against Spider-Ham, it still just represents a very good deck. Like, it still just does what discard does, with the benefit of Collector being a buffed better card. So ultimately, this is one to look out for if you're interested in discard. It's kind of crazy to think, but honestly, Move does not get played very often. It is one of the lowest play rate archetypes as a whole, and honestly, we got a 60% plus win rate deck right here. And it's just Move. It's just straight up Move. There's nothing fancy to it. It is Move, but people don't play it. The play pattern is complex. The strategies and the use of the different cards does require some heavy thinking, some heavy math, and a lot of practice. So maybe that's what turns some people off. Locations can really screw up this list. So if you're someone who is experimenting with Move, definitely consider retreating more often than not. If you see a Fist Tower or something like that, get the hell out of Dodge. But regardless, like, I can't pretend like Move doesn't put up percentage, because like it's over 60% win rate. It's got good cards in it. I still think Ghost Spider's fantastic. You have the Hulk Buster combination with Multiple Man Iron Fist. You got Vision, who's a good card, and I think there's going to be very broken versions of this with the Phoenix Force that'll be coming out soon as we refine those lists. But honestly, even without it, just straight up, this Move is just good. So don't sleep on it. Here we are, one of my absolute favorite decks of the week, and I gotta tell you, Toxic Disruption is just so damn fun to play. Yes, you can get to Infinite with it. Yes, you can win Conquest with it. It does take practice, but this is a deck that your opponent is not ready for. It plays particularly well against stuff like High Evolutionary thanks to the Luke Cage. You do have the opportunity of playing, these high value cards. You occupy a lot of space with Debris. And you have the Enchantress to kind of deal with that, the Hulk, and the Shang-Chi to deal with the Hulk if they have initiative. There's a lot of ways to win with this deck. The Sera package gives you that explosive turn 6 that you can use with Hazmat, but I do like that this deck doesn't focus on like the Hazmat Wong Absorb. It doesn't get greedy, okay? I know there's Hazmat lists where people go absolutely insane with Hazmat. This just is like a splash. Just a splash of Hazmat just to get some added value, because it's not a 2-2. When it comes down to Luke Cage's on the board for you, it might be like a 2-7, a 2-8, depending on if you have Debris out or not. So I do think that this deck does provide a lot of value and a lot of opportunities to especially stuff Bounce, where like Bounce can't really contend with this list because it occupies too much space. When they Falcon, they pull up garbage if you kick over the hood with the Viper, etc. So I really do like this deck. It's fantastic in the current meta and worth turning to if you want something a little contrarian. Regardless, guys, thank you so much for watching. As I said, I appreciate all your support. The likes, the subscriptions, and all the support you give me really means the world to me. There's another video down below if you're interested in watching some more Marvel Snap content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in that next Marvel Snap video.